The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hello and welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. I've had a bit of a change in my life recently and I've just moved up to London. So if this is sounding a little bit echoey, it's because I'm in a new place and not my normal area or studio, and hopefully it's not too bad, and hopefully I can find a less echoey place to do these in the future. But let's forget about the echo. Let's talk about the best in the world, because that's what we're doing today. We are speaking to the Ironman World record holder, Tim Don, and what an amazing story he has to tell. Tim broke the world record last year in Brazil, and then just months later he broke his neck after he was hit by a car while on his bike doing a training exercise in Hawaii. And yet, barely 6 months after the crash, after breaking his neck, he is about to enter the Boston Marathon. Absolutely incredible. And I think for most of us, if we were to have a broken neck, we would go into all kinds of depression and despair. And I think what you'll really hear and learn from in this episode is that Tim is really upbeat about everything, and he is really looking forward to getting back out competing again at the Boston Marathon. So we talk about his whole life, his career, his famous father who's a former Premier League referee. We also talk about the man he used to run with growing up. Yes, it's a very famous person. It's Mo Farah. So what a great person to grow up running with. So all of that's covered on this episode of The Best in the World with Richard Parr. So let's get to it. Let's speak to the Ironman world record holder, Tim Don.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Tim Don, welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr, a triathlon world champion, a world record holder in Ironman. It's really good to have you on the programme. But of course, we're talking a few months after you had a horrific accident, but you're recovering really well. How are you doing at the moment, Tim?
Yeah, hi. No, I'm doing okay, thank you. I broke my neck on October the 11th, 2017, so it's been about nearly 21 weeks now. I had to have a halo on for 3 months where they screw the bolts into your skull. It's kind of like a plaster cast for your neck, so you really can't move it. So that was pretty aggressive. But no, that's off. I don't actually have to wear a neck collar at all now. So now it's a case of trying to improve the range of my neck movement, because obviously the muscles wore away in my neck, and also just the mobility of the different vertebrae. I've done better, but I'm in a good place considering where I was a couple of months ago.
Because I read that you had 3 different choices, right, of what you could do, and you actually chose like the least popular, the halo. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, the doctor, Dr. V, who's I was lucky that he was a triathlete himself. He'd qualified for Kona as an amateur,
Oh, wow.
So he knew kind of like what I wanted to do with my life when I said I wanted to be active. And he said most people go for the fusion, where it was C2 that I broke. They fuse it with C1, but that really would limit later in life and even immediately the movement left and right by up to 50%. But it's the quickest, because once you've had the operation, the bone is fused together with these 2 metal rods or titanium rods. And, within a couple of weeks, you're good to go. The other one was just a soft neck collar, which is good, but you still can move your head. So again, there's chances that the bone could be displaced, or it takes longer. The recovery won't be as smooth. And then the one that not many people go for is the halo, which is where they, as I said, they screw the bolts in. But he said if you have that, there is a 90% chance of 100% recovery with all neck function. And for me, as a professional athlete, as a young dad with 2 young children who I want to go and play football with my son and go swimming with my daughter, I wanted to have the best quality of life going forward. So it's 3 months of hell for hopefully a fully functioning neck going forward.
Fantastic. And you're now working towards the Boston Marathon. So pretty much in the space of 6-7 months, you're going to be attempting a marathon. That's something which some people try and just achieve once in their life. And obviously you're a real elite sports star, but to be doing that is absolutely incredible in what you've been doing. How's that going? And are there any concerns? Anything you're worried about at all?
Well, I've only ever done a marathon in an Ironman. So I've done one standalone marathon, and that was on a treadmill in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show for a sponsor. So this will be my first proper marathon. I'm not gonna break any records or set the world on fire. But for me, I'm a very competitive person, and I just felt I really needed a goal, something to focus on. And I realized that swimming's the hardest thing for me right now because I really can't turn my head to breathe. So I realized I won't be doing a triathlon until the end of June, early July, but that was too long for me to wait. So I thought of a challenge that I could do, and the opportunity came up that I could run Boston. It's obviously very iconic. It's one of the fastest, well-supported marathons in the world. So yeah, for me, it was just the stars were aligned, and it will be about 6 months after I broke my neck. So if I can run a 250, I'll be happy with that. Normally I run a bit quicker than that in an Ironman, but as I say, it's a stepping stone to doing a full Ironman later in the year. And my training so far is going okay. I've now run 10 days where I can actually run outside. Before then, I had to aqua jog in the swimming pool, and then I would have to use an Alto G treadmill, one of the anti-gravity treadmills. And slowly we've progressed that. And actually, it was the end of February, I got the all clear from my doctor that I can run outside, because I was also running with my neck collar on, but now I don't have to wear the neck collar at all. So yeah, we're moving forward now.
You must have got some funny looks when you were doing that, Tim.
Yeah, I think running around the reservoir here in Boulder, and people are giving me a double take. What have you got around his neck? but it's not as many double looks as I got when I was in the gym or on the exercise bike with a halo on. I can tell you that.
Yeah, when you were on a bike after just 3 weeks or something crazy.
It was about just over 3 weeks and a couple of days. I did 5 minutes and I did some exercises. I was just, the initial pain of everything had subsided, and I was just going mad because, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I couldn't put socks on. My wife had to do it. I couldn't shower. I was sleeping in a chair. I was really I really couldn't move because the halo brace comes right down to in line with my belly button. So, you really are immobile. So yeah, for me, that was my outlet, I guess, of stress, frustration, was going to the gym and doing some little cycling and doing some exercises with my lower body and my arms.
You seem very positive for someone who's been in this big crash and, a life-threatening injury, not just a career one, but a life-threatening one. Were you always this positive throughout it? How did you initially cope? How did you initially react?
I think, the first kind of 5 days kind of happened so quick, because obviously it happened in Hawaii. I obviously went to the hospital. At first, when I left the hospital, I was in there for about 9 hours while they were diagnosing and sorting me out and whatnot. They actually said that it wasn't that bad and the fracture wasn't so prominent. So I only needed a soft collar for 5 weeks. And they said, but we recommend we give you permission to fly, but we recommend you going home and seeing your doctor in Boulder. So at that stage, I was thinking, well, if it's 5 weeks, that's kind of like the end of November. I could probably race in January. So the first 48 hours, that was my mentality. Then I landed in Denver. We drove straight to the specialist, and he saw the scans, and straight away he said, no, this is the right lateral mass. This is a very serious fracture, because if there's any complications, it's so close to the blood vessels that go into your brain. And to give you C2 is actually kind of in line with your ears. It's very high up. It's almost in the base of your skull. So any issues there is going to have massive complications. So yeah, once that happened, I think then I was on some pretty heavy drugs. But no, for sure there were some, I don't know if dark days is too strong a word, probably not. But no, yeah, there were some hard times, when I literally haven't slept more than an hour for like 4 or 5 days. The screws are excruciatingly painful. Everyone's talking about the great races they've had in Hawaii, which I believed I could have, had a good race there. But there was so much going on that I had to deal with what was happening in the moment. I couldn't think I'm never going to race again, or I couldn't think what would have happened if I'd have raced, because just getting through the day was hard enough and painful enough. So I think breaking that process down helped me cope with it. But no, without a doubt, there were days when I thought, I just cannot go on. I think it was some of the medication they gave me the second time I went. So that was about a week after, just didn't agree with me. So I was vomiting. And if you can imagine, when you vomit, you have that neck kind of like gag reflex. But if you imagine your neck can't move because you've got these screws screwed into your head. So I'm trying to throw up, but it's putting pressure on my head. The screws are digging into my skull. It wasn't nice.
Oh, crikey. Well, it's amazing that you're having such a remarkable recovery, because 2017 up until then had been a pretty good year for you competitively, hadn't it?
Yeah, for me, I mean, since I've been doing long course like 70.3 and Ironman since 2013, and I definitely found my groove in 2014 in 70.3, and since then I've got a couple of medals at the World Champs and won 70% of all the races I've done and podiumed in 90% of them. But definitely Ironman's a different beast, and I bought a new bike coach on, Matt Bottrell, a year and a half ago, and with my existing coach Julie Dibbons, the three of us really found a formula. And yeah, 2017 was the year I really hit my stride in Ironman. And obviously in Brazil, I went 7:40:23, and the goal was to try and be competitive in Hawaii. So yeah, no, I was definitely having a good year, and I was in a good place physically and mentally going into Hawaii.
You said you kind of found that winning formula, the formula that worked. What were some of those things which you changed, which proved to be beneficial, without giving too many hints to your competitors, Tim?
No, I think for us, we changed my bike position. I got a lot more aggressive, a lot more aerodynamic, and also it was how I trained. Because when you race an Ironman, although you're trying to get from A to B on the bike as quickly as possible, you break that down into stages, and we weren't really doing that before. We were just going, it's 180 kilometers, about 4 hours 15 of hard cycling. But with Matt, we broke that down into different segments, so we could focus on, everything in biking is done by our power, our wattage output. So, we want to hold this watts for this period, then this, and we just really did a lot more intensity on the bike. But when I was fatigued, so towards the back end of the bike, I was able to produce more power than I had done in the past in a more aerodynamic position. Therefore, I was already going quicker. And, with Julie putting the whole program together, we then could incorporate my running around those bike sessions. And we could see early season with the 70.3s, I'd really made a breakthrough. But the only secret is really, I'll be honest, is you just got to train blooming hard.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
We'll have more from Tim in just a moment, but before we do so, I just want to tell you, if you want to continue talking about sports and high performance, then join in the conversation on our Facebook group. It's called Best in the World. You can just find it by searching it in Facebook. We'll have lots of discussions all related to sports and high performance. Come and join us. Best in the World on Facebook. All right, let's return to the conversation with Tim Don.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Give us an idea of a typical training day, if you wouldn't mind, Tim. Maybe the time you get up, what you're eating, what you're kind of training. Give us an idea of how that day goes, please.
So no 2 days really are the same. But so if I take, say, a Saturday. So normally on a Saturday I would I would wake up at about 6:30, have a light breakfast, some fruit, double espresso, head to the swimming pool for 8 o'clock, swim anywhere from 5.5 to 7,000 meters. And the main set would be about 3,000 meters of hard swimming. Come home, have some porridge with almond milk, and then about an hour later, jump on my bike, ride anywhere from, I guess, about 90 kilometers to 100 to 150 kilometers. And sometimes I'd put some, say maybe 2 by 45 minutes at race pace in there. And then that evening, I'd then go for a run anywhere from 8 to 15 kilometers.
Oh, wow. That's an event in itself that day. Again, interesting. You mentioned porridge with almond milk. That is pretty much the staple of 110 Olympic and world champions I've spoken to on this podcast. Very interesting. What about pre-race rituals? Is there anything in particular you do, Tim?
Nothing religious. No superstitions. For me, kind of race morning, it's all about a routine. I call it normal service. I've been a professional since 1997. So sure, it took me a couple of years to find it, but whether it's an Olympic Games, a world title, or the local race I'm doing for training, it's always the same warm up, the same checking my equipment the night before. I like to be very practical and organized, so take the superstition out. But I always travel. I don't know if this is, because obviously we travel a lot, I always take my own pillow with me. So at least I know I've gonna have a good night's sleep the night before.
Oh, wow. Is it a particular brand or make or something, or just your own pillow?
No, it's just a very thin, light feather pillow. Because you go to hotels and they have all these big fluffy ones. But yeah, when you just don't want to. You want to have a good night's sleep and don't want to get a crook in your neck.
Oh yeah, and that'll be especially important for you in the next few months, I'd have thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm still actually not sleeping laying down at the moment. I'm still sleeping at a slight angle, so we're slowly getting back to normality there.
Oh my goodness! And you mentioned you're a father. How did that change your life as far as all of this routine and training going?
Well, to a degree, it threw it out the window. No, I mean, I'm very lucky. My wife, Kelly, she's an ex-international runner, so she totally understands that being a professional isn't just about the training. It's a lifestyle. It's about eating well, going to bed early, when you're not training, even in the day, sleeping. So with children, she does a heck of a lot with them. But again, I'm so lucky that I don't work 9 to 5. So I can take my daughter to school and then go to the reservoir and go for a run. I can pick her up in the evening while she's doing her swim lesson. I can be swimming as well in the, a couple of lanes. So in terms of that, we make it work. And, it's a lot easier. Our son goes to school 3 days a week because he's only 3, and our daughter, she's in grade 2. So every day that when they're younger, it is a lot harder. The biggest thing for me was the traveling, spending time away from them. And that's the beauty about Ironman and 70.3 is you only race about 6 to 7 times a year. Well, when I race the ITU, the WTS circuit, I literally race up to 18 times a year, but I'd also be on national training camps for a lot of that. And when we first had Matilda, I was still living that lifestyle. And that was very hard for us because I was spending a lot of time away from my family. So, going up to the longer distance is made that a lot more simple for us.
Because you're living in Boulder now, right? But you're from Hampton in southwest London, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've lived in Colorado, Boulder now for almost 5 years. The reason we moved here is, within the United Kingdom, it's very much an Olympic nation, especially for triathlon. It's all Commonwealth Games, Olympics, ITU, the International Triathlon Union, the WTSs. Ironman isn't that big. Most of the big races are in North America. Lots of the big sponsorship opportunities for that distance are in North America. And to give you an example, it's the middle of winter here, and over the weekend it was 21 degrees, and I'm at altitude. So it really is. They have 300 days of sunshine in Colorado, in Boulder. So it's an amazing place to train. It really is.
Oh, you're rubbing it in there, Tim. It's freezing here.
And I'm sorry.
And I want to talk about a little bit about your early life, and because obviously your dad was a famous referee, Philip Don. Was football ever on the cards for you?
Not really. I mean, everyone dreams of being a footballer, but growing up in England and the United Kingdom. But no, I mean, I played for the school and Sunday league team, but I was never gonna go professional. And I tell you what, I certainly wasn't going to be a referee or the stick my dad used to get. But no, I enjoyed it. But for me, I always swam from a young age, and I enjoyed mountain biking, messing around on my bike. And by the time I went to secondary school, I was doing cross countries, and kind of like the three sports just came together. At Hampton Open Air Swimming Pool, there was a big triathlon club there called Thames Turbo. And through them, they introduced me to triathlon, and the rest is never looked back. The rest is history.
Amazing. And you also famously trained with Mo Farah growing up. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, he went to one of the rival. He went to Feltham Community School, and I went to St Mark's. So we raced each other, and then we ran for the same club. Then there was Hounslow Athletics Club, or the Borough of Hounslow, and we were in the same run group and hung out with the same guys. He was obviously a lot younger than me, but he was running with us because he was that good at such a young age. But growing up in that area, I'd be running in Bushy Park, and you'd see 10 Kenyans coming towards you running. You'd see Daniel Coleman. He was one of the original pioneering Kenyan distance runners that was racing in Europe. They were all based out of St Mary's University, which was in Teddington, just down the road. Yep. So, I was so lucky that I was brought up in an endurance mecca. Sonia O'Sullivan was living there. Oh wow. Craig Mottram, he used to come and train there. It was just Richard Narurka, one of our great marathon runners back in the day. So it was just I was in the right place at the right time for endurance sport.
Is there anyone in particular you looked up to the most?
I think back then internationally it was definitely Haile Gebrselassie. I mean, when I met him at Sydney Olympics in 2000, and what he was doing over the 5 and the 10 then was just phenomenal. He was one of those most consistent runners, winning virtually everything he did. But he always came across as a happy, smiley guy. And whenever I met him or saw him live competing, he did come across very genuine. And for me, that was definitely the benchmark of athletic performance and being someone that was kind of like an ambassador for their sport. Definitely Haile Gebrselassie.
Yeah, whenever people talk about him, I've never heard a bad word about him. Everyone's always got positive things to say. What are the main differences then, Tim? Obviously, in your early years, you were very successful in triathlon and now very successful in Ironman. What are the main changes that you have to make when preparing between the two? I know you say you race less, but what does it involve? A lot more work?
It's and I don't mean this. It's a lot simpler training for the longer distance. It's a bit like going from a distance track runner to marathon and half marathon. As you lose your speed, you can keep your endurance. So it's just a lot about more miles for us now. It can be quite not complicated, and it is complicated for triathlon training because you need to balance all three sports. You don't want to improve one too much to your swimming going under. If you need to improve all three similarly. So you need to kind of like, divide your energy and time roughly equally. And for me, going longer, it was a lot more simpler. With ITU, if you miss a beat, then your race can be over. But in an 8-hour race, you've got time. And again, we ride on our own in Ironman. It's a non-drafting race, so it's a time trial, as opposed to ITU, which is like a criterium, like pack cycling. So tactics are heavily involved. So for me, it's a lot simpler. It's a lot longer. And I actually enjoy it a lot more now. Now I'm older, I can go out for 4, 5, 6 hour bike rides on my own or with some friends. And as I say, Colorado, wherever I train, I'm lucky that it's really nice. I find it a lot simpler. And the fact we're not traveling as much is brilliant.
What goes through your mind, though, in some of those really long races where you're not with someone else, where it's just you and your thoughts? How can you keep that focus for such a long period?
For me, again, I break it down. So there's actually, you still have to focus on a fair amount. So, kind of like the swim, you want to make sure you're swimming in a straight line. You want to make sure you're as close to the person in front to get that draft. You're checking out where people are behind you. Transition, you're hitting that pretty quick. You want to get on your bike. Once you're on the bike, that's the big chunk. That's the kind of 4 hours. You've always got to keep an eye on you're not, because for the first hour and a half, it's very easy, because if you're hurting then you're in a whole world of pain, because you've still got half the bike and a marathon to run. So it's about, you've got to focus on pacing yourself, not getting greedy. You're also nutrition and hydration. You need to keep fully fueled for 8 hours of exercise when you're on the limit. So again, for me, it's kind of every 20 minutes, I need to have some calories in. I need my electrolyte drink. I need to make sure I'm in the right gear. This is the hilly part of the course, so I need to know the corners. There are things that you can break it down. And for me, I'm not thinking, I'm doing this for my country, my family, my wife. I'm an emotional racer. I'm a very practical racer. So I'm trying to break it down into the moment. Before I know it, I'm like, wow, I've done one lap. I've only got one lap to go of the bike, and so forth. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it does. No, it really does. You said to keep yourself fueled. You mentioned electrolytes. Is it things like gels that you're eating throughout the time? Is that what you're normally being fueled by?
Yes, on the bike, I use gel, like a liquid diet. So I use gels and then an energy drink, which has carbohydrate and electrolytes in as well. But yeah, literally, it's almost 12 to 14 gels on the bike. But I use a gel flask, and then up to 4 of my own water bottles. And then obviously at the aid stations, I'm grabbing water. So yeah, by the time you finish the race, all you want is something savoury, like a really salty pizza or some French fries. Very athletic food.
and you can have that. You can get away with that.
Oh, after an Ironman, you get away. The one thing you can't get away with is walking up and down stairs. That's hard.
Yeah, I'll always remember at university, a friend of mine did his first marathon, and we were walking to lectures by some stairs, and I couldn't stop laughing as he tried to climb them. So I dread to think what it must be like for you.
You need a hotel with a lift.
For sure. We're going to wrap this up shortly, Tim, but one of the things I also want to know is how do you relax, and what do you enjoy doing when you're not thinking about cycling, swimming or running?
For me, I love spending time with my family. As I say, it's a big part of my life. So yeah, we always hang out on the weekend together and in the evenings. I'm lucky. We've made we've been here 5 years, and through the children and obviously triathlon, there's some awesome coffee shops in Boulder. So yeah, it's nice to go out for a coffee. And my parents are retired, so they visit us a lot, and my wife's do. So spending time with my family, and we enjoy traveling as well in the off season. We always try and go away for a couple of weeks somewhere new with the children, for some, relaxing time, but also something a bit different as well. So, there's no hobbies really that I have. As I say, triathlon, it's not you can't, I'm a believer, with professional sport, you can't truly fully switch off from it. It's not like an office job that when you take your tie and suit off and you get home, you can forget about it. You're always thinking, if I have 3 glasses of wine, I'm probably not going to train that well tomorrow. 1.5, I should be okay. And, should I have the French fries and the burger, or, the nice grilled chicken and the rice salad? It is the amount of effort that you put into your body and your job is the kind of return you get in. You're kind of self-employed, but also the harder you work, and I don't just mean the physical side, just the harder you prepare and the more diligent you are, the better the result. So you can't truly switch off, I believe.
And I think that's great advice for anyone in any industry, really, everything you said there. Finally, the Ironman South American Championship in Brazil last year, you broke the world record, shaved 4 minutes off the time. The person who came second was 25 minutes behind you. Was that a day where you just even before you set foot on swimming or cycling or running, that you thought it was going to be a good day? And did you have the world record in sight as you went into that race?
I absolutely did not have the world record in sight. There are over 8 hours of doing anything. There are so many variables that can affect it: weather conditions, mechanicals, ups and downs. So the world record was never. I'll tell you a story. Actually, it was 13k into the run, and I raced for a team, and one of the team coaches was like, "If you run a 2:48, you're going to be close to the record." And I was like, "Brilliant! What record?"
13 hours.
And then he said the world record, and I was like, "Oh, right, okay." So I had absolutely no idea, even in that late stages. I knew I was in good shape, and I wanted there to execute and to be competitive to win. The year before, the guy who won, Brent McMahon, he was only a minute off the world record, so it was a fast course. But no, I was never thinking that way at all. It kind of like, the weather conditions were perfect. It wasn't hot. There was no wind. The roads are smooth. There was no current or waves in the sea. Saying I won by 20 minutes, that's not unheard of in an Ironman. What happened is about halfway through the bike, I had a big lead, and then there was a lead group, and they decided, whether it was intentionally or not, to play a tactical game. They decided that whoever was on the front didn't want to work extra hard to try and catch me, so they really backed off. And while they did that, I just could forge on. So sometimes when you see the big gaps, there's obviously tactics involved. So those guys had decided, let's race for second, and in doing that, it made my race look more impressive.
Well, it certainly was impressive, and this has been a really impressive conversation about an amazing life and career that you've had so far, Tim. Before we go, can you first of all let us know where we can continue to follow your journey on any social media channels or a website, something like that? And also, I hear that some of your sponsors have been really, really good and been really supportive through the difficult last few months you've had. So I don't know if you want to mention any of them as well.
Yeah, if you want to follow triathlon, just Google triathlon and just follow it. It's an awesome sport. I'm Try the Don on Instagram and on Twitter. We're also in the process of making a documentary, which is nearly finished for the last since I broke my neck. So that's going to finish. That's going to be released in May. I'm just so lucky that my sponsors, they've really got behind me through these difficult times, and going forward, hopefully I can repay them by going back to Kona in 2018 and having a good race there.
Well, fantastic. I'm sure you will, and I wish you all the best in that Boston Marathon, and hopefully we'll see you competing again soon on the Ironman circuit. It's been so wonderful to talk to you, Tim. Thank you for being on the programme, and thank you for being the best in the world.
Thank you, Richard.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Great to talk to Tim. Wish him all the best in the Boston Marathon on April the 17th. If you're into triathlon, you might want to go back and listen to my interview with Emma Snowsill. She is a former triathlon Olympic champion. Plus, if you're into crazy world records, how about the world record in static cycling? That is held by the adventure man Jamie McDonald, episode 55. That is a really fun chat. Maybe go back and listen to that. It's all on iTunes, on Stitcher, and please give them a rating and review if you can. That really helps boost the performance of the show so more people know about it, and please press that subscribe button. Alright, I'm going to leave it there for this week. I'll be back next week with another world or Olympic champion, world record holder or world number one, to find out what they do from the rest of us to become the best in the world. Goodbye for now.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.